Bully is known as one of Rockstar's funniest games of all time. Every single character in the game has their own personality with funny voice lines, and designs that are very distinct from one another. Bully is just known to have some of the most unique characters and personalities out of any Rockstar game ever released. And the entire game is supposed to be mostly light-hearted school antics, but there are some hidden details that makes Bully seem so much darker than the average player would realize. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at the creepiest locations in the town known as Bullworth. So we're going to count down the top 5 creepiest locations in the entire game from my experience of playing Bully for the past 12 years of my life. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to keep it simple for this very first location, because this first location is actually within the main school building. What I'm referring to is the mysterious school basement that we unlock access to at the very end of chapter 1. In the mission Help Gary, Gary Smith explains to Jimmy that he's found something incredible. Obviously, by the way he's acting, all excited and full of energy, we can tell instantly that something is up with him. Jimmy also realized this and doesn't seem to like Gary's current idea, but Gary, being the master manipulator that we know of, he convinces Jimmy to follow him all the way down to the parking lot of the school. It's never explained to us why, but we have to beat up a gang of bullies to then obtain the key to the basement entrance. So once we beat them up, Gary decides to act even more suspicious by saying, "After you!" Even though Gary mentions that he's been in the basement before, he still forces Jimmy to navigate the many different puzzles that finally leads to the main part of the basement. Also, isn't that weird in itself that every single room is locked off by some cage with a switch? It's like there's some dark secrets the school doesn't want the students to find out about. Anyways, finally making our way down to the hole, this entire area is filled with even more questions. What is this green liquid? What is the hole even used for? Why does the hole even exist? Sadly, these are all questions that are never once acknowledged in the final game, which once again makes things even more mysterious about it all. So basically what I'm saying is, your guess is as good as mine. Looking around every single crevice and corner in the hole, there is a table with a red bell, a hammer, and a bunch of scattered documents. This is expected to have been some secret fight club that the students would host, obviously without the teachers knowing. There's also this random little alleyway that leads to a completely destroyed elevator with a barricade stopping you from entering. And that's basically everything that's down in the basement. The basement itself definitely gives off the vibe that you're not supposed to be down there. And whenever I come down here on my own, outside of the mission, it feels weirdly off as if someone is watching me all the time. Yet nobody is down there. Now, moving on to the rich part of town, let's take a look at the Happy Endings retirement home located in Bullworth Vale. Although from the outside this retirement home looks like a very normal place, with the tidy flower beds, the nicely designed garden, and a clean area all together. But there's a bit of a darker meaning behind it all. The reason this location feels a bit creepy is because the actual residents of the retirement home seem to hate it here. Let's take a look at this old lady, Miss Lisbon, for example. The 2 times we meet her throughout the entire game are both for errands. In one of these errands, she asks Jimmy to help escort her from the property so she can finally escape. We also catch a small glimpse of her escaping in one of the paper route jobs. So that's already 2 recurring instances of Miss Lisbon trying to make her escape from the retirement home. As well as noticing that the residents hate living at the retirement home, the employees that work for Happy Endings are the same employees that work for Happy Vault's Asylum. This theory could be completely incorrect, but maybe the elderly people living at the retirement home used to be locked up at the asylum but were never allowed out. This would make sense to Miss Lisbon trying to escape, because maybe she's been barricaded from the normal world for most of her life, and now she's finally had enough of it. Next up, let's travel down to Billy Crane's Traveling Carnival. You may be asking, what could possibly be wrong with the fun little carnival with many fun games to play? And yes, you would be mostly correct. This carnival does look very fun, until we realize that there's a freak show here in plain view. The problem is, freak shows have a very dark history even in the real world. If freak shows still exist nowadays, it would just be filled with random people dressed up to look creepy for the experience. But decades ago, dating back to the 1940s to the 1950s, freak shows, as evil as it sounds, were originally individuals born with or later developed rare physical or mental conditions, and people would go to see the showcase for their own pleasure, even though the individuals at the freak show were likely suffering every single day. So, bringing this over to Bully, we have 7 different acts in this tent. The first one, the Skeleton Man, and by his description, he's basically just a human skeleton with skin. He He's extremely unhealthily thin and you can literally see every single one of his bones through his flesh. The next freak is called the fat, ugly, bearded woman. There's not much to say about this person, apart from the fact that she is very unhygienic, sits around on her couch all day eating nachos and watching TV. This next freak display is definitely the most evil inside of the whole entire freak show. We have the Siamese sisters. They're conjoined by the waist and only have 2 legs. Delilah is one of the sisters' names and she's supposed to be the friendly and nice one, but the other sister named Jezebel is much meaner and has a very big attitude. We see this as she keeps pushing her sister for no reason. Midget wrestling is the next act in the freak show. As you can see, they're both small people, locked up inside of a boxing ring and made to fight all day every day. The freak show has you as a player place bets on which wrestler you think will win as part of their monetary gain. So putting it simply, the carnival makes money by forcing midgets to fight each other all day. The next character at the freak show is by far the most sad one here. He's named the Crazy Painted Man. As his name applies, every single part of his body from head to toe is painted, and he uses the exact same screaming sound effects used in Happy Vault's Asylum. He spends his days screaming and banging his fists against the prison bars of the red room that he's locked inside of. I'm not sure if he used to be locked up in the asylum, or if Rockstar just got lazy with the sound effects and gave him the same asylum screaming ambient sounds. Now this last freak is nowhere near as bad as the others. The final one we have is the Last Mermaid. To be honest, there isn't much to say about her. She's just a mermaid that swims around all day and occasionally blows kisses to the visitors of the carnival. I mean, I guess she seems happier than most of the other freaks, so that's a good thing. In conclusion of the freak show, the reason this is added into the video is because these characters are locked up in here against their will and are forced to perform here probably for free, while the carnival gain a lot of money from their mental or physical conditions. Just completely evil business practices. The second to last location we have is a cemetery located in Bulworth Vale near the retirement home. In the daytime, this area doesn't feel too creepy, it's just a graveyard. There isn't much ambience, NPCs barely show up at all, and sometimes you can catch some of the students here mourning the loss of their loved ones, which is pretty depressing to see. And sometimes the townies hang around here behind some of the gravestones. But if we come back here at night time, the feel is completely different now. First of all, the lighting alone makes this 10 times creepier than before. Now even less NPCs tend to spawn, usually only the townies now. The ambience is way creepier, and inside of the church, a preacher can be heard reading from the Book of Genesis and the Book of Revelations.
Destroy both them and the earth. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on the earth, and Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood.
As a little kid myself, I was actually so terrified of coming here, and the game literally makes you come here to grab a few collectibles and to take a photo as part of photography class. Finally, here we are at the final location for this video, and as a lot of you probably guessed already, Happy Vault's Asylum is by far the scariest location in the entire game. The asylum has some insane detail, but is actually only used for 2 missions in the game. The first time we come here is in the mission Galloway Away, where Miss Phillips informs Jimmy on the heartbreaking news that Mr. Galloway, prior to this they have just been on a date together, was taken advantage of by Mr. Hattrick to being put into the asylum. Miss Phillips asked Jimmy to sneak onto the private asylum grounds to break Galloway out so they can finally live happy ever after. Once Jimmy sneaks past the fence barrier, we are greeted by one of the asylum patients. He has a very interesting quote where he says,
"Let's be friends, but don't anger the Watcher."
And the camera then switches to this creepy looking statue of what I'm assuming is the Watcher. The game never explains who or what the Watcher is, but making this mysterious is what makes the asylum so unsettling. We then have to set the statue on fire, which distracts the asylum orderlies, to then sneak into the main building. Inside of the asylum we can hear a bunch of screaming coming from the patients, as well as this very loud high-pitched drilling sound. This gives us the idea that maybe the patients are being tortured by the orderlies. There's a bunch of creepy pictures scattered around the asylum walls of very strange x-rays of species that don't even resemble human beings. And another strange looking photo right here. There is a literal morgue where they store deceased bodies of the patients, and we can see operating tables in the same room. The last detail I want to mention is if you get busted by the asylum orderly, it plays this unique animation of them injecting something into Jimmy's neck. He gets dizzy instantly after, and then the screen goes completely green. The audio of the in-game surroundings also become very echoed while this sequence happens. And then once you respawn, you're off the premises. A bit overkill for a teenager, I must say. And those are my top 5 creepiest locations in Bully, in my opinion. If you have any more ideas for creepy locations, feel free to comment them down below. I'd be really interested on your ideas on this topic. Thanks for watching this video, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Peace out.